Okay, so Jay.
Yes, sir.
I have not talked to you for a while.
That's correct.
We first met each other when we were, 17 years old?
I think it was earlier than that because I think I was
16,
a sophomore.
16, around
15,
there.
16, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I just been reminiscing a lot now that we're in middle age, let's say, okay, or close to middle age. And it's good to reconnect with old friends.
Yeah.
And think and kind of, remember what we used to do and the fun we used to have and how it just seems like another lifetime, right?
Yeah.
For, all my listeners and people that don't know, JJ now for the last, how many, 15, 20 years?
Career?
Yeah.
What I've been doing? Yeah, 20 plus years. Actually.
20 plus years.
Yeah.
In production, media production at large corporate events for Fortune 500 companies. Like, give me some names too.
Back in the day, did a lot of auto show business. So like the Toyota, General Motors.
Wow.
Almost you name it. Pharmaceutical has kind of been a lot of that recently.
Yeah.
But companies like McDonald's and stuff like that.
And when your role is to make sure that all the video media looks good for the presentation or during the show, or
yeah, so the services we offer actually are we can run everything from the starting art direction phase of things like well before the show,
like what they want it to look like.
Yeah, to the final actual execution of the show. We offer a range of services, and some clients will use us just for maybe consultation purposes. Some clients will use us just to help produce content.
Wow.
And then we'll have clients that hire us for the whole thing, including coming in on site and bringing all the equipment that delivers the content. So a lot of big computer racked equipment.
Right.
That's like, for lack of a better term, like PowerPoint on steroids, very specific software that they call, this media server product that really does,
But you don't bring the screens. That you'll deal with whoever's there, right? Who's ever.
That's right. We work with the staging companies.
Right.
And so staging companies these days usually are pretty all-encompassing in that they provide audio equipment, video equipment, and lighting equipment. So usually they'll provide, big LED screens or projection screens.
Gotcha. Do they own those?
Yeah, any large staging company is going to own a good percentage of what's on a show.
Don't they? Isn't technology constantly moving, almost like a television, where like the hardware is actually improving, or is that not the case? They can use
technological depreciation is a big challenge in our business.
Wow.
Yeah, it's harder for staging companies, but we have to deal with it too. When we have to make acquisition decisions,
right.
To grow, and we decide what we're going to invest in. We have to really consider what is the roadmap,
right,
for this product.
Yeah, just to give you a heads up, not a heads up, like an example of that is, we wanted to buy, for me and Andy and Prescott, we wanted to buy an upgradable processor for the computer, so we wanted to buy a Mac, and it's like $6,000.
Right.
And we're like, my first question was, how long is this going to last?
Right.
As far as be effective and be fast. Because for some reason, and this is kind of like an interesting thing that not a lot of people talk about, but we always seem to be a little bit behind, right? As soon as something speeds up as far as processing speed, we try to capture something bigger or more clearer, and then it takes longer to process. Do you understand what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
What is that called?
Like render time.
Yeah.
In our world, it's like render time.
Yeah.
So, back 20, 25 years ago, you want to do multi-track audio, right? And you want to put effects on it. You want to hear what it sounds like. Well, you're going to have to sit there and hit whatever, render is a different word for it back then.
Yeah.
And then go get some coffee and come back later just to listen to your mix, right?
Wow.
Audio data compared to video data, like, can the camera see this? Yeah. If audio data is like this much, video data is like here. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
So
as far as compression and
it's just as far as the size.
the size of the information.
That's correct.
Okay.
So, over the last 20 years, then, like now you could, on just about any system, it's all real time as far as audio is concerned. You could do tracks for days and put on effects and, for the most part,
So kind of you're saying speed is caught up with audio. Mm-hmm. As far as fast as people can move and get things accomplished.
Pretty much.
The systems built for audio will kind of keep up.
Yeah, anything these days is you can do a lot with compared to 20, 25 years ago.
Wow, yeah.
Whereas with video, even with video now, we're getting to a point where render times. So it was always about like render time with clients. Like,
right.
Okay, well, we need this change, or we got to set a budget or whatever, and it would come down to render time, and it would depend. If you're doing some pretty flat vector type graphic animations that can yield really quick render times. Mm-hmm. But if you're doing full 3D modeling with lighting, some CG sort of stuff, camera fly through, we sometimes have to like farm that out to a facility that specializes in rendering. All they do is render.
Come on.
Yeah, because,
like process.
Yeah, that's it. And like,
wow.
Some things we've worked on, it would take a quarter of a day to render one frame,
Holy
You're talking 30
shit.
frames per second. So you do the math. If you're doing like a little 2-minute or 5-minute piece, it takes a long time. And then the second there's a change, especially in like from a timing standpoint. So say you have a camera moving through a scene and they decide it's moving too fast. We need to slow it down. Every one of those frames need to be re-rendered, because it's changed the time, the amount of time that whole thing happens.
Wow.
So, and so you're right. I mean, there's no ceiling to how fast and efficient computer technology can be to handle what we do in the video world. Because the other thing that keeps happening is the frame sizes keep getting bigger, right? So,
what do you mean by that?
So
more pixels inside the frame?
Yeah. So I'm sure you've heard of the terms like HD, high definition,
yeah,
and 4K.
Now they have 8K coming out.
Yeah. So. For a long time, to do something in high definition would, compared to standard definition, was a huge difference in cost.
I
right?
remember when HD came out, I thought it was so cool. Now, like, I thought it was so neat to see all those things in HD. You know, the clarity. Football was the first to do it.
Right.
And, I was into it. I wanted it. I wanted to watch TV and movies like that. Then 4K.
Yeah, HD is now the minimum. Like, if it's not it's either HD or
HD.
up,
Well, yeah. I mean, kids these days will never know everything's going to be widescreen and HD. They're never going to know what it meant to, like... I mean, I can't even believe when I was a kid at home that we used to watch TV on a little TV.
On an analog TV, too.
And watch football, like a big football game on, like, a little TV, And we were fine.
Yep.
Because we didn't know anything better.
Yep.
But now everyone has private movie theaters and all that stuff,
All the screens are so bright, so you could watch and you can have all the lights on in your room and still see, really good black level detail and stuff like that. Whereas, you talk about the old analog TV sets that can only put out, so much light.
Right.
It's a different world for sure.
Yeah.
So,
what about for like movies and stuff? Is it the same thing? They have to render for like if it's a movie's like completely CGI, 2 hours of CGI, let's say. They have the same issues?
Yeah, render is always part of the formula. I mean, I can't speak as much to the film industry because we're not in film, but I do know, a little bit about it. So like
Gotcha.
Disney, Pixar, from what I understand, they own, they have their own giant just render farms, right? So that they could do all the rendering in-house, but they have to factor time for render because no matter who you are, especially Disney, Pixar, the quality of the animation and the quality of lighting in the scene and all that stuff, all that like exponentially adds to render time.
So when you were working for a client, you would literally have to charge them for time when the computer was just working on its own and just doing something, rendering like we were talking about, right? And it was just working? Like, would you charge them per hour or by the...
No, so we would
Because
never.
it does come to a question of time versus cost, right?
Yeah, so we would always work really hard to not have to work or not to bill for any time that doesn't involve a human designing. We pretty much charge for design time, but render could factor in how long we could turn something around.
Right.
And if it needed to be turned around sooner, and we just don't have the hardware in house to do that, we would farm it out to like a render farm, and that would cost more money because we have to pay for that. That's an additional service.
What's the name of your company? Give a shout out.
Pixel Mosaic.
Pixel Mosaic. Cool.
Yeah, pixelmosaic.com.
So now that we've caught up on what you do to a certain extent, we're going to take a jump back in time.
Back in time. Okay.
And we're going to go back to 1991 and 92. All right? Now, we grew up on the northwest side of Chicago, correct? Mm-hmm. You moved from the south side to the north side because your father was a...
Lutheran minister.
Minister, correct. I was going to say priest, but I know that they don't call him priest, right?
That's correct.
Yeah, we do in the Greek Orthodox, or what I was brought up in the Greek Orthodox. Mm-hmm. So your father was a Lutheran minister, and he had, and you lived in the
parsonage.
The parsonage, which is the home for the minister.
Yeah, we wouldn't have been able to live in Park Ridge.
Oh, okay.
Otherwise, the only reason we lived there is because the church had a parsonage for us to live in.
So parsonage is the house that the minister is allowed to occupy, right?
That's correct.
And it was across the street from the church.
That's right.
And as kids, by knowing you and and then your family, we were allowed to rehearse in the church. And we would rehearse.
I think we played some shows there too.
Yeah, we played some shows there, and it had a big stage, right? Mm-hmm. And it was a lot of fun. And I was just thinking about, I think a lot of kids today, they have everything's phones and video games, and they don't have and I'm not trying to sound like an old fogey or something, but I just think it was so much fun that we had a hobby that allowed us to get together with our friends, which was music. We were in a band. We were in rock bands, and we'd write our own music and try, put something together and have something to do. Yep. And I think about the poor kids, like on the south side, who have nothing to do. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, I think one of the hardest parts of being a kid is to keep them busy and occupied and to keep them stimulated. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So they're not out on the streets doing dumb shit.
Right.
Or doing drugs or whatever. And it was, I don't know, I just think we were really fortunate to have that. Do you think that?
Yeah, I do. And it's funny you talk about kids these days like having their little mobile device or whatever. Everyone's tied to their mobile device.
Right.
Us that played an instrument and also got into like wanting to record ourselves, right?
Yeah.
I kind of like, you remember the 4-tracks we'd have, like the cassette base? Those were kind of like our cell phones. We were kind of tied to that in a way, There's kind of a metaphor there. But I mean, I think you're right. I think a lot of kids that got into music and fell in love with writing music or playing music, that was having that as a hobby and just getting in, like, it's a social thing, you know, when you have a band getting together.
Fun.
With
it's like a gang. It's like a mini gang.
Yeah.
And I can see how kids join a gang because you want that camaraderie when you're young, right? Mm-hmm. You're not like, you don't have a family yet. You're not adept at like attracting women and stuff like that. Yeah. You want to have fun with your friends.
Yep.
So to me, it was kind of like a gang, Mm-hmm. And it was also competitive too. You wanted to, another kid had a band down the street and you wanted to be better than them.
Yep.
So
remember? It's like judicial loaded deck hypnosis.
Yeah, we were in hypnosis.
Fighting each other.
Yeah, and we... It seems so silly.
Who could sell more Gateway Theater tickets?
Oh, yeah, right. And...
remember when I got mono and we couldn't play that Gateway Theater show?
Yeah.
You wanted to replace me. I remember that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I don't remember.
You just brought it up, like, what if we have someone else play?
Listen, we were both headstrong.
Oh, yeah.
Very headstrong. And we would
probably
argue.
Still are.
Yeah, we'd argue a lot, right? It's good that we each have our own businesses now. We can,
Right.
Because I want to do what I want to do, and you want to do what you want to do.
Very independent, both very independent.
Yeah. and strong.
spirits. Mm-hmm.
Remember we had a singer just because he had cool hair?
Which one? Which
that
one?
long-haired guy, I can't remember his name.
Oh.
But he had really long hair. And we were
Yes.
like, damn, his hair is so cool. We got to have him in the band.
Yep.
Even though he was like...
Because he had the look.
He had
the look at the time.
Right. But he wasn't a great singer.
No, in fact, I think when we first asked him if he wanted to sing in our band, he said, I don't sing. I've never sung or whatever.
We were like, we don't care. You have long hair. That's so cool. So stupid.
Yeah.
So we went to high school. Remember when we bought our first leather jackets at the alley?
Yep.
And they were like $100. And you were like... And you were wearing yours to every class, and you're like, bro, I'm not going to leave my fucking $100 jacket in my locker. Someone's going to steal it.
I don't remember that, but it doesn't surprise me.
And so I tried wearing it to like every class to be cool, but then the whole class smelled like leather because it was like such a rich grain leather.
I think I think I do have a yearbook picture where I'm wearing it.
Oh yeah, that's right.
When you do post on this, I should get you that picture and just do a cutaway to it.
Yeah. I have a picture with all four of us in leather jackets.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, wait. Is that the one with Kleiner?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think Kleiner.
We're like at the railroad tracks.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. We never knew where to take pictures. We would just go to the railroad tracks or like on top of a building or something. I don't know. So dumb. But
Front of some graffiti
it was
wall.
fun, And then the Thirsty Whale was this venue where kids, if you were in a band, you could get on stage and pretend like you were a rock star.
Yeah. They'd let anyone on.
Yeah.
As long as you were willing to come whatever Thursday once a month and sit for 2 hours to get your opportunity to talk to, was it Tony LaBarbera? Mm-hmm. And you'd get a put on a Wednesday night or a Thursday night.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then you try to get your friends out and pretend like you were a rock star. And then people got really into it and it was fun. And there wasn't a lot of videos back then. Like you needed a big video tape recorder. You needed a big video, right?
Right, to record it.
Yeah.
And then
and no one would bring those to the show. It was
Yeah.
like a very rare event that someone would bring something like that.
yeah. It was like basically a bar. Like it was crazy. It was all ages, but that was like a bar, man,
Yeah, but there was like the place in the back where you could drink or something. I remember, wasn't there like a
there was a
different bar?
separate place for the all ages show. There's a separate section where you could drink.
Yeah.
And the place closed down before I even ever turned 21. So I
Yeah.
never was even back there, other than that's on the Thursdays where they did the, everyone come in and book your date sort of thing. They used that area, if you recall, because the bar wasn't open.
Yeah,
The place wasn't open, but they would use that to sort of
book all the bands.
facilitate and provide the hospitality or whatever.
Right.
to all
Yeah, we never drank over there,
No,
right?
not legally anyways.
Yeah. No, we never did because
we didn't know.
Because, they would have seen it right away.
Yeah.
I just wonder if we went back how small it would look, you know what I mean? But obviously
Right.
it's torn down now, but I just wonder. And you know who I saw there? I saw Alice in Chains open for Extreme.
That's right.
And that was crazy.
So crazy.
It's so crazy because they became, for people who aren't really into rock and roll. I mean, Alice in Chains became one of the biggest bands in the world.
Yeah.
And they opened for Extreme at the Thirsty Whale, and nobody knew who they were. They had this weird sound, right? It was real dark and grungy, and I thought it was kind of cool. But everyone said he sounded like a
goat.
Yeah,
Yeah. He kind of looked like one too.
yeah.
Is that the Pornograffiti tour?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, we went to high school together. We had fun. We also did the variety show. Remember?
Mm-hmm.
And
I love the V shows.
You loved them?
Yeah.
Yeah, you wrote a song, and and they only there was 3 nights of the V show, I think, and they only recorded one night, and
my rig failed.
And you're on stage. The one night
that's like
the one night they record the V show, and it's your song. You wrote it. It's like this cool
it's an instrumental. It's called Ghost.
Yeah, it was an instrumental, and it had like guitar harmonies and shit, and it was so cool. And the one night they record it, your amp goes out, and you're kicking your amp, and the rest of us keep playing, right?
Yeah.
We kept playing.
That seriously is just a metaphor for my entire musical career. So whether it was like my pants legs getting caught in the drum beater, like some jazz showcase in Orlando or whatever, there was always these like little flubs, you know what I mean?
Now, speaking of flubs, I was telling you that you produce these big shows now, right?
Well, I'm not a producer.
Not a producer.
I work with producers.
Okay. So there is a producer that produces the whole show.
There's always an executive producer.
Right.
Then there's associate producers. There's media producers. There's video producers. So there's lots of producers.
Right.
But there's always an executive producer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was telling you that I met this girl once, and she worked for like show, what is it called? Like party promotion or some kind of, anyway, she was like a event organizer.
Yeah.
Or event producer, like you're saying. And she said she got out of that business because technical stuff people don't understand, but there's so many variables involved. So when you set up something, she said she would set up the whole show. They would test the mic, everything would be perfect, and then as soon as the main speaker would come on to start talking, the mic shuts off.
Yeah.
And everyone goes crazy, and they start yelling at her. You know what I mean? And the stress is just crazy.
Yeah. On these corporate events, there's millions of dollars of production riding on, the CEO or whatever coming up on stage and delivering his or her speech.
Yeah.
And it being communicated effectively. I mean, there's so much riding on that from a producer standpoint, I don't know how they do it because they don't have any control.
Wow.
They don't have any control. All they can do, and that's why you work in this business, your clients are the nicest people. They treat you like with so much respect because they know the last thing you want to do is piss off your sound guy or your playback operator backstage or something like that. Put them in a bad mood. You need their focus. You know what I mean?
Wow.
So I don't know how they do it. Because those of us that are working backstage and actually pushing buttons and stuff, we have more control.
Right.
But at the same time,
I mean, they're in stress that whole day, right?
Yeah.
It's like a wedding. It's like a wedding organizer. They're trying to get the wedding to go well.
Yeah. You're talking about a wedding, so it's the same thing.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, for sure. And I've seen my fair share of shows go down the toilet.
Wow.
And as a technician,
tell me about.
I will. But I will say as a technician, right? I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, I've programmed this whole thing to do all this crazy stuff, synchronized with lights and like all this big multimedia stuff, multi-screen stuff, programmed all this, and all I got to do is hit this space bar and it's all going to go, right? But in the back of my mind, I know there's all these computers networked and synchronized together that are all working off a clock, where at any given moment, they're electronics, it's silicon, you know what I mean? At any given moment, something could slow down a little bit. I mean, you can always have a bug occur.
Wow.
And I always think about, like, my clients have no idea what's happening under the hood in these computers, and there's always risk involved with everything. And so what I like to tell, like, especially my employees, is that we're always going to have risk involved with our job. Our job is to mitigate the amount of risk as much as possible. The more you mitigate risk, the more successful shows you will have. Right. And a lot of people stress out about hitting that button and something going wrong. You have to, at some point, give up control. I don't have control. Once I hit that space bar, I have a very limited amount of control, and it helps keep you at peace, because otherwise you'll go crazy.
Yeah.
I used to get really, really nervous, like physically shaking, because I was just so much was riding on the line,
Jesus.
2 weeks of like on-site production for this big car show where they're revealing this new truck. And if this video isn't right, it's going to be my ass. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like you're really nervous or whatever. But at some point you just got to say, hey, I've done everything I can.
Right.
Something can go wrong. And if it's going to go wrong, there's nothing I can do about it. That's why I have redundancy. We always have full redundancy, a full main and backup system.
Right.
And I've had a main failure and I've had to say on headset, please switch to backup, or if I'm controlling the switching to backup, and the more you can do that calmly, you're going to actually come off in the end as a more of a professional, you know, whereas if you're like, switch it back on, screaming in the headset, you know, people, you're going to come off. It all comes down to what does that producer think of you when they walk away from the show? Because they're going to think about that when they consider who they're going to hire for the next year or the next show. And if they remember you were calm and collective, you may have had an issue or whatever, but you dealt with it. You dealt with it.
Didn't panic. Don't panic is the key, right?
That's right. So you want to hear about shows that went down the toilet.
Yeah.
We could do a whole separate podcast just on that, by the way.
Is this your company or like was it your fault or someone else's fault or?
We've definitely, no one has worked in this business and has not had some sort of failure of some sort.
Right.
Everyone has. But I try to just speak in just sort of the general broad overview of the show. That way no one's getting thrown under the bus. And
yeah, I know.
I'm not going to mention names.
No,
or
I
anything.
know, of course.
But I did do a show one time at a venue meant for like big trade shows. So it was a large space and it was all glass. The whole like the majority of the building was glass, right?
The walls.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And a lot of people can figure out where that is. Probably Google it and find out in 5 minutes. But so we're doing this show, and probably one of the worst things that can tank a show is audio. Lights go off, everyone's in the dark. All right, you could always like turn on the house lights or figure something out, right?
Yeah.
Video goes out, it's bad because they're trying to present their graphics. But man, if you have feedback, something that's like dangerous to,
and really, and shocking and really just.
Or a power problem or something that involves fire, of course. God. Those are, those are obviously
right.
You don't want those. But so this show, big glass building, the front of house audio console that was being used was a newer console, was kind of towards the beginning of digital live consoles. Mm-hmm. And the console had a bug where in some certain circumstance, if a certain fader was brought all the way down, or maybe all the faders, I don't quite know exactly what it was, but if a fader was brought down, it'd actually open up all the circuits. So in other words, it'd be like the equivalent of all the faders wide open. And the front of house engineer did not know that.
Oh, wow. So
you can imagine as a front of house engineer, he triggered it, and the amount of the feedback was, I'll never hear feedback like that in my life.
Come on.
It was so loud. And of course the front of house engineer just brought all the faders down, but it didn't fix it. It was
my God.
It was some sort of bug in the console. And so the feedback was so outrageously bad.
Like high pitched, low, or like
very high pitched, like damaging ears. We're backstage, so we're safe.
Shit.
We got all this curtain and we're safe, but it's still bad. You could tell from backstage how bad it was.
Holy cow.
I believe I heard there were like lawsuits. It was that bad. And I just remember, I remember the producer being in tears.
Oh my God. And it was just because of the board.
It was a flaw in the board,
but nobody knew about the flaw in the board because it was a newer product.
The front of house engineer was not aware of it, from my understanding.
Yeah.
Their way of ultimately getting the feedback to stop was to like literally turn all the amps off backstage.
Yeah, right. Shut down power.
They had to shut the whole thing down.
And was it during a speech or something? Was everyone quiet?
Yeah. Oh yeah. It was just an executive on stage speaking in a corporate event.
So what'd they do? Just shut it down or try to redo it or?
I think it was towards the end of the meeting, and I think they didn't continue the meeting. If I believe. I don't remember if they restored or not. I want to say that the whole thing was pretty much done.
Wow. Horrible.
I did a show at the MGM in Vegas. It's when they just opened, I think it's called is it the Garden? No, it's not the Arena, but they had just opened a new ballroom. I think it's called the Marquee Ballroom. Mm-hmm. And so you have to actually go outdoors to get to it. So this was like one of the first events there. And this event had 4 full walls of projection. So 360-degree projection. Each wall could have been 100 feet. I don't know. I just remember that it took 30 projection stacks all blended together. And of course, I was running media, so we were running like things like a roulette table that would visually go around,
right?
Because it's around.
That's so cool.
It's immersing the whole entire audience, right?
Wow. 360-degree around the whole audience.
Yep, 4 walls.
Yeah.
It'd be like
That's cool.
7 projectors, 8 projectors. Excuse me.
Yeah.
And it took forever to get all those projectors
to sync up, probably
dialed up and all lined up and everything to make one image, right?
Jeez.
So it was a show in either June or July.
Yeah.
In Las Vegas.
Right. Super hot.
Super hot. Okay, so the attendees are in. They're doing a session and they do go to coffee break, right? So all right, let's kick it off the break. And so the plan is the attendees are gonna go outside maybe for 15 minutes or something like that and come back inside. So they had these giant barn doors that would go up to facilitate people walking out of the building,
okay.
right? And the AC they had for the building was impressive. Just these giant units, these giant air conditioning units outdoors. Mm-hmm. So the barn doors go up. It's probably like 70 degrees, maybe 65 degrees in the room.
Right.
That's probably like 105 degrees outside.
Sure.
Open up the barn doors. All this warm air comes in. Boom, all the air handlers are going on full blast. This is a brand new building. Hasn't been like fully tested or whatever. It's all theoretically to spec. And the power completely goes out. I've never seen power go out so fast and instantly in my life. It was just a straight blackout. Just a straight blackout. And like these guys are supposed to be coming back in 15 minutes. And the producer goes, the projectionist is like, once we get power back, you can get this back up in 15 minutes. The projectionist is like, you kidding me? I could give you one wall in 1 hour. Because it takes time for the projectors to fire up, and every time the projectors fire up, and you kind of have to retouch things up. So literally, they had to run a session where they have one wall, and then they're working on the next wall. Like it was.
But wait, the power came back on. There was reserve
power. Eventually came back on. They learned they're going to have to figure something out because they blew the power right
with the big air conditioning units trying to cool down that big. Auditorium.
So that wasn't like really a tanking, but it was like a pretty impressive show moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you couldn't do the 360, right? You had to do one wall at a time or something?
Yeah. Well, we had to do one wall during one session and then find another longer break to get the rest of the projectors back up. Yeah.
Wow. Crazy.
So.
What's the biggest event you did as far as audience attendees?
Probably not at liberty saying like the name of it.
No, I mean, how many people? Like what's
about 15,000.
15,000?
Yeah, 15, maybe 20,000.
Did you ever do anything here at the Bulls games or anything like that?
At the United Center?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I've done shows at the United Center. Did a show for Accenture back in the day. We provided some of our servers for a show where they did all the media server stuff up in the catwalk. That was interesting because like it was a lot of computers and there was only so much space, and I'm like, man, one of these things falls off of here and hits someone, I'm going to get sued. You know what I mean?
Oh, wow. What about, did you ever do those projections on the
on the floor? Yeah. Yeah, we did a couple at the arena in Atlanta.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Like you make the design and everything?
We actually didn't do the content for those. We just did the on-site operation. Like I said, we offer a range of services, and clients use us for whatever capacity that they need. Like they fill in whatever hole. But yeah, we've done some big projection mapping shows. We mapped onto a truck for Navistar in 2012 in the early projection mapping days. Mm-hmm. And so they wanted to reveal a new truck, and this truck. The idea on this truck is that it's very versatile. could be used for all sorts of applications, whether it's like a refuse vehicle or a dump truck or a oil tanker or something like that. So they had the truck, and then they did this like Tetris-looking piece on the back, like just a flat that we projected all these different configurations.
Oh, cool.
So we basically, and then there was this big curved projection screen behind the truck that would show that it's in whatever environment that we were transforming it for.
Do you need a lot of math in your job?
Yes.
Like, because you're dealing with like ratios and stuff, and what? Because like
algebra, trigonometry.
Really?
Geometry.
You use it a lot every day?
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, especially now, the world we're going into now. Because, the industry was already kind of headed towards this trend even before COVID hit. And that was doing more mixed reality, so extended reality.
What does that mean exactly, extended reality? Is it like virtual reality?
It's a mixture of, what virtual reality is, like having, the glasses
goggles,
on,
yeah.
right?
And then you get a full view from like around your eyes, right?
Mm-hmm. And then augmented reality is, I'm looking at my phone and I'm moving it in space. And
like the Pokemon game?
Sure. Yeah.
When they were trying to find that Pokemon guy?
Yeah. Okay. I never did the Pokemon game.
Neither
so
did I.
I gotta say sure.
But I'm saying I think it used some of that.
Yeah. It would, here's a good example of AR is like, say this studio was just a big open shell because you haven't built it yet, but you want to see what it's going to look like. So you move the thing around and it'll show you, what the architects use it for, that sort of thing,
A lot of the home design things are going that way.
Yep.
Right.
So augmented, so extended reality, it's kind of a mixture of all that stuff. So for those of you who saw the little Katy Perry video for American Idol, that was all extended reality.
I gotta check that out. Katy Perry for the latest American Idol?
I believe so.
Okay.
Yep. And so she was filmed in a studio, and they used the same media server products that we use at our company. And so she's in a studio and she's being motion tracked, right? So in other words, where she's at in space is being tracked three-dimensionally.
Right.
And there's a prop, there's a chair, and then there's, I don't know if she was in front of a psych screen or what, but all of that is filled in with digital content, So the chair probably was just like wrapped with some sort of projection mapping type material, but was replaced with, some sort of content,
So if we're here now, do you believe in do you know the whole theory about, the philosophical theory about being, like we might be in a simulation? Have you heard about that?
No.
Oh, you haven't? Oh, you got to listen to Elon Musk and Joe Rogan and stuff. They talk about the simulation. But what they're saying is since Pong, okay, video and, video is changed so much in the last, 50 years or whatever, that, in another 2,000 years, imagine what video is going to do. You're not going to be able to distinguish between real life and video. And then, as soon as they can map out the human brain, they can put us into that video, right? Like our consciousness. Once they figure out consciousness, I don't know how close or far we are from that, but they say we could be in a simulation right now. Do you know what I'm saying?
I'm trying to follow you. This may be a little bit over my head here.
Well, it's just an idea that we could be like in the video game right now, and we could be avatars in somebody's video game, because it just does. We've gone so far in just 40, 50 years. Imagine in 1,000. We're not going to be able to distinguish between reality and. Do you know what I'm saying? So if that's already happened,
yeah.
Anyway, I don't know. It's just an idea.
So like the idea of like manipulating our brain to like make us think we're somewhere that we're not.
Yeah. So like our consciousness is in our brain, right? What is it? It's just synapse. What is consciousness?
Just electrical pulses.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So if they could figure out
how to manipulate it, or
how to map it,
and
put it onto a chip, But our personalities. Okay, they could download our brain. They can map it out, make a complete copy, okay, of our brain, which theoretically they could eventually do, right? Because everything's advancing so fast. So they take that and put it into a server, and that server has virtual reality in it. We could live forever. Do you know what I'm saying?
I think I'm starting to follow you.
Yeah.
Now.
Because all we are is our consciousness, right?
I don't know if I like it, though.
They also did a Black Mirror episode about that. I love Black Mirror. Do you know about that?
No.
Oh, you don't watch TV, right? You don't got time to watch TV.
I watch a little bit.
Yeah.
I saw Breaking Bad.
Yeah.
And yeah. I watched Netflix.
So has the COVID affected your business? People are not gathering.
Has COVID affected live events?
Dumb question, right?
Yeah. Yeah, you
But
can say that.
they'll be coming back, I think. People are going to have new cars. People are going to have new shows. People love digital media. It's not going anywhere.
Yeah, but live events, they'll be the last to come back.
The concerts, the sweaty, dirty concerts. That's fine. I don't go to those that much.
Well, corporate events are maybe a little bit before that, but you still have a lot of bodies in a room very close together.
Yeah.
Yeah, so...
But even more reason, you can separate. I don't know. I don't think it's that big a... I think it'll come back faster than you think is what I'm saying.
Maybe. I know...
My gym's opening back up in July.
Well, as we move farther into the calendar year, I don't have anything... Everything's been erased up until November.
Wow.
And they just keep erasing stuff. There's not a day that goes by where someone says, hey... we have a possible show coming up. All that, like, literally, it's blown my mind how much every week. Now these 3 shows in October, now they're canceled.
What about out-of-state stuff for you? Do you guys have anything that's been booked out of state?
All our stuff's out of state. I mean, everything we do so little stuff in Chicago.
Oh. What about other countries?
Yeah.
They're locked down, too.
Yeah. Man, I don't... So that's an interesting question because we've had a company from Australia contact us and say they claim... Now, they do installations, so that's a little different. There's a little bit more... You have a little more control there, right? So in other words, they install... and they do installations at maybe museums or something like that. But because they can't travel internationally, they're like actually inquiring about us helping them out. So... Yeah, we used to do things.
You could still create digital media.
We are doing that. And like I said, they're starting to do this thing called virtual meetings. So, which I'm still getting my head around, but it's very much like that whole Katy Perry thing where people are tuning in via webinars or they're just tuning in online, right?
Oh, to a big presentation, but online?
Yep.
Doesn't have the same effect, though.
Doesn't have the same effect. And I attended a webinar by Exhibitor Magazine a couple weeks ago that had a lot of data that showed how important in-person trade shows are to the world and to people and to businesses' ability to convert leads. Because that's,
I think Vegas has kind of always been a Wild West kind of town, right? Everything's legal there. They're very pro-freedom and all that stuff. I think they'll be back up before anybody because Trump is kind of leaving it up to the governors, right?
Right. And I do agree that Vegas will try to get up and running, but it's much less about venues opening because we all know the second hotels give them the green light to open. They're going to make themselves available. They're going to make their ballrooms available. The problem is
stigma?
Is Microsoft going to invest in an event for 2020? Are they going to invest the $1 million it takes for an event? They've already said they're not investing on anything even in 2021. So a lot of the Silicon Valley companies, the Googles, Facebook, like a lot of that type of event business.
Salesforce.
Yeah, they're shutting down, and a lot of them are making claims that they're going to be shut down like through 2021 or maybe into the fall of 2021 or something like that. And we have a client who canceled a show that they had scheduled in August, and they said, forget the cost of what it would take to do a show, whether the restrictions will be lifted. Forget all of that. Our members of our association, because that's what they represent, they're not buying anything right now. There's no business occurring. So there's no value in doing the show.
They're just going to wait it out. Yeah, they'll just wait it out.
They're going to wait it out until. Yeah. So my point is. So the other thing with events, live events, is they have a very long lead time. Like, you don't just say we're going to do Chipotle doesn't just say we're going to do a show next month. They plan it out
a year,
sometimes a year in advance, sometimes 2 years in advance.
Right.
And so the live event business, whether it was like the recession in 2008 or 2001, we always have the most latency to being restored. Usually, we're the last to dwindle, right? So like in 21 and 2008, usually because meetings have already been booked, deposits have already been paid, right? So companies are like, well, we just need to follow through and do this, even though we've just hit a recession, right? So we're usually the last to feel the effect of a recession. So that gives us an advantage because we could plan, right? But we're also usually the last then to restore. We have this big sort of latency to it. COVID was a whole different world because there was no option. It didn't matter that this company were already in the 100% commitment, in terms of contractual obligation. It didn't matter because they're not doing this. The event is done. It's shut down. In March, they were just going.
Yep.
Every day I'd be like, this show's been cut. This show's been cut. And I'm like going, what the fuck, Damn. So, we were the first to shut down because they're shutting down large gatherings before they're telling businesses they can't operate. Right. So we were the first to go, and we will be the last to restore. For sure. Yeah. So you ask how it's affected live events. I mean, we're in a scramble. We're trying to find other business, not just virtual events. We're trying to find legitimate like app development business, other industry that we have the ability to render services for, just to keep ourselves going, keep ourselves afloat,
Wow.
So we've now turned into a software development business, pretty much.
Oh.
Or trying to anyways.
Right. As a side thing.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Well, man, we got a lot of good stories. A lot of good stuff from you today.
Good.
Did you have fun?
Yeah, absolutely.
You're in Indiana now, so I appreciate you coming down to see me. Anything else you want to say?
No, other than thanks for inviting me. I've never done one of these things before.
I know, right?
It'll be interesting. I don't know if I'm going to be able to watch it. Cause
it's like my hobby now. Why?
I just have a hard time seeing and hearing myself.
I know, everybody does.
I know it's the case
everybody does. It's horrible. It's just the way we are. Yeah. I couldn't even, I didn't like to watch myself on like a big TV, when I first did this. I'm like, it's like too big on the TV. You know what I mean? I just watched it on my phone.
Right.
But everyone watches stuff on their phone anyway.
Right.
But we also when we do the podcast, we not only do it on YouTube, but we also send it, the audio only. There are a lot of people who like just audio
just
talk
like
shows.
To listen to it.
Yeah. And you don't need the visual.
Yeah.
Really. If you're in your car, it's very pleasing to listen to, a good talk show. And Andy, thanks to Andy and his production, we have really nice audio to our show.
Yeah, thanks for providing the hospitality. This is a great studio.
Yeah, thanks, man. So it was nice to see you. I wish you good luck with your business. I think you'll be fine. I don't think digital content's going. I mean, you'll still have stuff to do, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think so. It's a little bit nerve-wracking.
It's jarring, yeah.
So.
Well, I think you'll get through it fine. But nice to see you.
Nice to see you, too.
And we'll talk again soon.
Sounds good.
All right. Thanks.
All right.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.